Hey there, everybody. Greetings. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Live Album War. Today, we've got two pretty enjoyable albums. One released in 1972, the other in 1977. One originally like a triple live album. The other a double, which also has some studio stuff on it. So it's not 100% a live album. But at its time of release in 1977, it was the only official, at that time, live album in most parts of the world ever released by this band. Although they actually had a live album, probably considered their best ever, released in other parts of the world. Okay, later released everywhere. But again, at the time of its release, it was the only official at the time. So we're talking about two bands from the kind of San Francisco area scene of the late 60s and throughout the 70s. The Grateful Dead, Europe 72, all right, and Santana, Moonflower. Okay, so we've had numerous people asking, well, when is Moonflower going to be represented here? And on the same token, a lot of people asking, so many great Grateful Dead live albums, you got to have at least one of them on here, right? So the trick was to pick out which one. Now, before we go any further, I know there's going to be a bunch of you who are going to comment, and they're going to be like, oh, Europe 72 is great, but what about Live Dead? That's their best ever live album. Well, back about 6 or 8 months ago, I was doing some polls on the Facebook page, and I did Live Dead, I think against the Allman Brothers, the Fillmore or something like that. And I can't tell you how many people commented and said this is not a fair fight because Live Dead isn't even the Grateful Dead's best live album. There's so many other better ones. I was like, okay. So over the last couple of weeks, since we've been doing the shows here on the Classic Live Album Wars theme, all these people who have been asking for some Dead stuff are like, when are you going to feature Live Dead? And I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to feature Live Dead because I got such a negative reaction last time I included it in these kind of like tournament type things. Or back then there wasn't a tournament, but you know what I'm saying. So I said, but I'm going to pick something else. All right. But that in itself was quite a chore because I'm trying to figure out, well, they've got so many really good live albums, which one to choose? I ultimately decided to go with this one. It came down to this one and the Fillmore West 69 triple CD set, which was only released about like a decade or 15 years ago, which is basically like the more full-blown Live Dead. Okay, the Live Dead came from the shows that were played at the Fillmore and surrounding areas over like a weekend, right? But, you know, most people have always said that Live Dead should have been longer. The Fillmore West set, and then there's the complete Fillmore West, but I have the 3-disc version, actually is really damn good because it kind of like puts all the pieces together. But I ultimately went with this one just because I happen to like this one quite a bit. I think it's a really good kind of a document of where the Dead were in that kind of transition period from that pure psychedelic and bluesy beginning to the more like kind of country rock and exploratory sounds and more of their kind of jam material of the mid to late 70s. So let's kind of start with this one first. So released in 1972, recorded in venues all over Europe, because of course that's what Europe 72 was all about, right? It was the Dead going over across the pond from here to play all sorts of shows in Amsterdam and London and Paris and Copenhagen and what have you. So we've got a lot of tunes on here recorded at Empire Pool in Wembley, okay, and the Concert Goodbo in Amsterdam, all right, the Lyceum Theatre in London, the Olympia in Paris. What else we got here? I think that might be the bulk of them. Yeah, that's where everything's taken from. So a good chunk taken from the Lyceum Theatre, though. And a very good set list, which includes some kind of older favorites, as well as some newer tracks that the band were debuting on that tour. So it kicks it all off with Cumberland Blues. All right. The first couple of sides of vinyl actually more the song-based stuff, right? That's what another thing I like about this. It's kind of varied, right? So you've got on the three LP set originally, 2-disc set. The first LP is comprised of Cumberland Blues, He's Gone, One More Saturday Night, which is really good. Okay, but they're all really strong. He's Gone, very emotional. I dig it a lot. Then on side 2 of the vinyl, you got Jack Straw. Okay, then a new album. A new song. Of course, Jack Straw has become a favorite over the years. You Win Again, a very hot China Cat Sunflower. And then probably my favorite track from at least on the first disc, is I Know You Rider. A lot of cool jamming on that. Great guitar work from both Garcia and Bob Weir. Okay, Jerry Garcia and Bob Weir. Over on side 3, you've got Brown Eyed Woman. A really good rendition of Hurts Me Too, an old Elmore James track. And then Ramble on Rose, another Dead favorite, done very, very well here. Over on side 4, things starting to heat up a bit. A Spirited Sugar Magnolia. All right, a excellent Mr. Charlie. Okay, and Tennessee Jed, crossing the 7-minute mark. Okay, so right there, if you ended it right there, still really, really good. That's two slabs of vinyl right there. Okay, but there's more, right? Side 5. This, for me, this last LP in the set, or on the second disc on the CD I've got, is where things, really kind of take off from there, and the band really starting to show their capabilities to kind of jam and go into stratospheres, unknown. Kicks off with a 13-minute version of Truckin', probably one of my favorite versions of that track. It's funny, I was never a huge fan of the song itself, the short original studio version of it, but live it always kind of took on a life of its own, and I think on here it's just really great, because I think the regular part of the tune is just kind of amped up a bit, and then Garcia goes off into all these explorations, which is just fantastic. Got the great keyboard playing and everything like that. A lot of really good grooves. Just a really well done version on here. That morphs into Epilogue. Okay, again, more jamming, a lot of liquid guitar lines and things. Then you've got Prelude, another kind of lengthy jam tune. All right, and then finishing off the album, you've got a really, really nice version of Morning Dew, again crossing the 10-minute mark. A lot of nice piano work and great guitar lines, and those kind of really loose Grateful Dead grooves, which on this album are just ever prevalent. It's just a really, we were talking about this before, right? And I think that you kind of compare them. They're really two different bands. And I think the Dead were just kind of moving in a different direction here. And I just like the looseness of this. This is like one of those kind of like feel-good live albums. You put it on, you blast it in the backyard, everybody's just kind of hanging out in the sun type of thing. It's just more of a laid back, but there's no less experimentation going on, I think. All right. Whereas that's more of kind of like, that kind of psychedelic bluesy thing they were doing early on. This is a little lighter, a little airier, okay, a little more space going on there. I dig it. You got Garcia, you got Ware and Lesh, and Pigpen. I think this was the last tour that Pigpen did, if I remember correctly. And Bill and Keith and the whole gang is here. But good stuff. A good album. A good album. As is this one, Moonflower. Okay, so this was recorded, I believe the live track's also recorded in Europe, all right, in 1976. And then they went back into the studio and added a whole bunch of other stuff here. So it starts off, you got a studio track called Dawn, Go Within, all right, kind of mellow, kind of brings you all in. And you got Carnival, all right, then Let the Children Play. Okay, these are some of their like mid-70s tracks, right? Jugando. Okay, I'll Be Waiting, which is a studio track. That's the one weird thing about this album, is that they kind of plopped the studio tracks in amongst all the live stuff. Instead of like maybe doing, like what Kiss did on Kiss Alive 2. They put all those studio tracks all the way at the end. Here they kind of like they're all in between some of the stuff. Over on side 2, you've got Bahia, another studio track. Then you got Black Magic Woman, Gypsy Queen. Pretty good version on here. Okay, not too bad. Then Dance Sister Dance. Baila mi hermana. Okay, I always like that tune. It's kind of lengthy on here. It's I dig it. It's good stuff. For me, it's like one of those tracks by them that I think should have been bigger. Then you've got a sizzling Europa. Okay, Carlos just killing it on guitar. All right, on side 3, another studio track, a single, She's Not There, an old Zombies tune. Done very well by Santana. Done very well. On the vocals, you've got Mr. What's his name again? Greg Walker. Okay, doing a fine job. All right, where did I leave off? Okay, Flor de Luna. Okay, another studio track. Very well done. Then a near 15-minute version of Soul Sacrifice, okay, which is from their very, very first album. Also includes bits and pieces of Head, Hands, and Feet. Pretty scorching. One of the highlights on here, right? And then on side 4, you've got another couple studio tracks. You've got El Morocco, Transcendence, and then finishing it all off with another live track, you've got Savor, Toussaint l'Ouverture, however they say that, okay, near 13 minutes long. And if you had the previous live album, okay, Lotus, that was awesome on that. It's very good on here too as well. So, I mean, I like this. I do. I personally think this pales in comparison to Lotus. The one thing I do like better about this album is the vocals. Okay, I think the vocals on Lotus kind of suffered. I think the lead vocals on here, Greg Walker is a very good singer. He fits well with Santana. You've got Carlos Santana obviously also on board on guitar and backing vocals and percussion. You've got the always capable Tom Coster on keyboards. You got David Margan on bass and Graham Lear on drums and Paul Ricow and company on percussion. Jose Chapito Arias and that whole team of guys doing all the percussion and the congas and things like that. But I think that this could have been better had it had more live stuff on it. The studio stuff is cool, but God, it's like you can't tell me you couldn't play more stuff from those first 2 albums. I mean, it's just at the time, this was like their first official live album, internationally. Again, Lotus came out before, but that was originally only released in Japan. I mean, this was released all over the globe, and it's just not really representative of all that Santana was all about. Okay, so I think as much as I do like this, I always have liked it. In recent years, I think my initial love for this album has kind of decreased a little bit because I liked Lotus so much better. Okay. And then we also, now we've got the official release of their Woodstock set, and then there's the earlier Fillmore stuff. So a lot of really great live Santana stuff out there. And while this is still cool, for me, it's not as good as I always thought it was. And I think I would have much rather had a full live set. And, if you want to tack on a couple studio tracks at the end, that's fine. But for the most part, it's like, this could have been better. I think this was a missed opportunity. But it sounds great. It's very well produced. I mean, the sound on it is fabulous. But I think a missed opportunity. So for me, when I'm looking at the both of these, because that's kind of what we do on these shows, is we're kind of like looking at, talking about, comparing, and figuring out which ones we like more, which ones we prefer. We're trying to figure out what everybody's favorite live album of all time is, right? So we're doing this tournament thing. And for me, my pick today as the one I would like to see move on to round 2 is going to be Europe 72. I just think overall it's a more fun album. It's a great live album. Okay, the band is in fine form. It's loose. It's jammy. It's got lots of great hooks and grooves and great musicianship. And it's just a nice capture of the Grateful Dead in the early 70s as they're kind of moving through that next phase. Okay. But you may differ, and I personally, I like Santana better as a band than I do the Grateful Dead by far. But I just think, if this was Lotus against this, it'd be no contest. But I think that I really prefer this album when we're talking about both of them together. It's one of my favorite Dead live albums, and arguably, and the reason why I didn't throw this one up there because this is something that was kind of put together more recently, and I just think that as far as like classic, we're talking classic live albums, right? This is indeed a classic. All right. You may like other Grateful Dead live albums a little bit more than this one, but you can't deny that this is a classic Dead live album. Okay. So, you know how it works. You're going to see a little white circle up over here at upper right-hand corner of your screen with a little letter I in it, right? You're going to click on that. You're going to vote for the Grateful Dead or Santana, which one of these 2 albums you like better. and also go to our Facebook page and Facebook page, and you can vote there as well. Or you can do both. You can do one or the other or both. Doesn't really matter. At the end of 6 days, I stop counting. I see where we're at, and the winner moves on to our bracket for round 2. Okay, we've got about another week and a half worth of these first round matchups to go, and then everything starts fresh again, and all those winners from the first round get new combatants, and we start round 2. Okay, because the end goal, somewhere around the holidays, later this, later this fall, early winter, however long it takes, we are going to crown your favorite live album of all time. We'll see which one it's going to be. We've got a lot of great ones in the pipeline already that are moving on to round 2. Some names that we figured were going to be there, some not so much. So it's been interesting so far. But visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube. Put some comments below. Let us know what you love about these two, or what you love about the one you love the most, or maybe what you don't like about these two, right? That's cool, too. So remember, there's no right or wrong. We all have our own preferences on stuff, so it's just a matter of just talking about them, right? So anyway, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. We got 2 more of these coming up tomorrow, and we will see you then, all right? So have a good one. See you soon. Bye-bye.